And then the fourth was a young man from China there to cover Guan Tinlang. I don't know if you remember the 14-year-old back then who made it to the Masters and played as an amateur. They hit him with a slow play penalty as well. But anyway, this young journalist who was there to do any videoing, interviewing, writing, everything, had never played golf before, had never been on a course. He got pulled out of the lottery and off he went. He put his name in and there he was playing with us at Augusta National for his first ever round of golf. Now, very broken English, as you can imagine. His poor caddy trying to figure out how to teach him golf on Augusta National during the day after the tournament conditions. We're talking, and it's not like they watered the greens. The greens were faster than they were for Sunday.
Mayo experience.
Mayo experience. Mayo experience. Mayo experience. Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience, presented by Underdog. It's Eastlake. It's the Tour Championship. There's 30 guys. There's no cut, and the odds are dog shit. So what are we going to do? Find ways to bet on this anyway, because that's what we do on the Pat Mayo Experience. You smash the like. You sub to the channel while you're here. I had to pull in some ringers for this one. Usually on Wednesdays, it's Tambo, but we are not playing DraftKings this week because who wants to play a DraftKings contest with 30 players in the field and no cut? That doesn't sound like a whole lot of fun. Tambo will be back next week as we get into big-time NFL strategy, so stick with us for that. Oh, also, if you want to play in a giant survivor, I got one. There's $500,000 guaranteed in the prize pool, only $50 per entry. Hit the description. Go do that right now. All right, I'll wait. Thank you. Money Mills on the line with me. Ben Everill on the line with me. Two friends that I made down in Memphis. I thought it would be fun because this is what you guys like to do. How is the rest? Okay, I left. People, the magic of editing, Chris, is what happened here. That I had to leave on Sunday, but it seemed like you guys just had the best time waiting out a playoff with Rose and Spawn.
Yeah, no, it was awesome, honestly. As a golf fan first, being able to walk down the 18th hole with the leaders, Fleetwood needing birdie, and obviously Rosie had like 12 feet to win without a playoff, but standing on the 18th green was pretty awesome. It's a great recap for the whole week.
Ben, were you working at the time? Did you have to have like the microphone? Were you hiding behind trees? What were you doing?
No, I was hiding behind trees. I was actually watching the fluctuating odds in all the secret spots between the ropes and getting texts from Money Mills there and the others saying, "Where are you? This is sensational stuff." But I was just watching it all fluctuate and couldn't believe that Scheffler gave it up down the stretch like he did. I really thought that he was making a charge. And look, it was fun. It was sweaty. We were just sweating our rings off, as you know, out there. But it was good to see someone else in the mix. And JJ and Rosie in that playoff was something else, to the point where they changed the hole on 18, as you saw. That was interesting to make sure we got a winner. And it was a mismake in the end, wasn't it, that had to be done. And there we go. It was ready to rumble. And after last week now, Scheffler's back though. So back to the status quo maybe?
Maybe, but the way that Eastlake, now that's been the redesign, that it's pretty penal if you miss off the tee, although they widen the fairways a little bit. And with the zoysia grass that's around, so the ball's going to sit up basically on a tee for you if you're in the fairway. The biggest comp I could find of this was Southwind, weirdly enough, that maybe we just kind of roll back the same guys that we did that week.
Well, definitely not rolling back because, as you know, in the show, they basically made me the full D-gen and having to go crazy every day, which a lot of the times we didn't actually recap all those picks. But even on the last day, went 4 for 5 and had that fifth hit. All I needed was McIntyre top 20. We would have been having a different conversation on that day. But one thing that you did miss, because you and I have been walking around for 4 days straight, just giving it to each other, which was awesome. But I picked up Rosie live at plus 3,000 when he stuck it on 14. So our hole all week, he stuck it to 15 feet. And honestly, I thought Fleetwood was going to bogey. He did have a 9-foot putt and he parred. But I thought that was when Fleet was going to start melting down. And at that point, Rosie had dropped back to minus 12. He bogeyed the hole before. And I just thought 30-1 with 5 holes to go with what had to be played was just significant value. So I ended up picking him up at 30-1. And when he made the birdie on 17, his odds dropped to minus 115, and I cashed out.
Was it a good cash out? I mean, obviously it wasn't a good cash out because he won.
Exactly.
But were they generous with your cash out?
So I mean, it was a $700 bet, and they gave me back 8,400, and I didn't have to sweat the playoff.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what, in that playoff, had he been a foot from the water, I think my heart would have burst out of my chest, because at that point I'm standing on the back of the green. I would have had no idea if it was in the water or not. But yeah, honestly, I thought that ticket was dead. So when I saw that cash out when it dropped, I just said, I'll take it. Especially after getting my ass kicked by Rick all week. I was like, I'm going to take a little win with me back home.
Well, they made you pay for the car. So did you end up putting your expense report in, or were you just like, hey, I won $8,000. It's fine.
Yeah, I really need to do that. I haven't. But I was just going to take that as like a necessary expense for a great week, but maybe I should look into that.
It was a pivotal moment.
You didn't make it to the casino, did you?
No, I did not that night. Look, I did get there for a little bit of time. I will say that. I'd been there early in the week with the money man, and we'd done well. Across the border, you can go from Memphis. You either go into Arkansas or you go to Mississippi. But the Mississippi casinos seem to have way too many mosquitoes, or mozzies as I call them. So we stuck with Arkansas, and it was a good little session there, even though I only got 45 minutes in at about 3 a.m. before flying out at 5 a.m. Again with Chris at the airport. But he made a good point. There was a moment there that he hit live with Rose on that 14th green. And again, we joked about me being in the bushes, but I was essentially in the bushes between that pond and the next hole, so I could see what was going on with Scheffler ahead and Fleetwood behind. And Scheffler was in trouble at the time as well, having had a poor drive. All things were happening. So it was a really good scenario for money to jump on at that point. And look, he's right. Like, he cashed out, ended up winning. It feels bad, but it was less than a foot from Rose being in the water on 18 at one point to give away the tournament. There were a few times where it looked like JJ Spawn's long putts in the playoff were definitely in, and they just sort of missed. So it's a good week when you can not sweat the winner and still get a good result.
I was trying to sweat the winner, as you may recall. He lost in the playoff. That was not fun.
Yes, that was impressive. As I said, like, we were watching it and we were having a laugh because the putts, honestly, the big long putts that were tracking the entire way, we thought Spawn's done it again. We saw him do it at the US Open, obviously, to put an absolute hammer down and win that. So we thought that, it was there, tracking, it would hit the edge and just fall off. It appeared that he had it won. It wasn't to be. The old KG veteran was there to do it, to make sure that he puts his name back up in the European Ryder Cup mix again, and as he always does around this time of year. And it was fun. I'll say that. It was fun when all of us were kind of expecting Scheffler to run away with it at that point. And in fact, most of the week, we were talking about that, including in that biblical storm we had under the small structure we were at all week. That was the talking point all week. It didn't eventuate, and I like it when it's not as obvious as Scheffler winning.
Oh, I totally forgot. I totally forgot about the rainstorm. And I think I said this on the show, but the day after I raced back to do this show in the morning, and then our system crapped out and none of the audio got recorded. So we had to cancel the show anyway. So I could have stayed, as it turned out, the rest of the time on Sunday instead of trying to really get home to make sure I was prepared for Monday morning. But we were on 14. This rainstorm comes in. There's even a little bit of hail in it. Lightning everywhere. It's probably the most rain I've seen in a 10-minute period ever. Everyone's huddled in our little golf bet shelter out there. The three of us are there. There's some spectators there. The whole crew is there. We're trying to protect our stuff ourselves. I got absolutely drenched, and we had all the equipment with us. There was this money. I keep wanting to say money because it was the running joke of the week. Chris,
keep doing it. It's money. The money man.
This is your fault, Ben.
Yeah.
We're doing the show. Ben's calling him the money man the entire time. And you can they must have gone back and edited it out like me, half laughing every time. And just Chris, I just turned to you and try to keep a straight face.
Yeah, it was brutal.
But
I just sounded like the most obnoxious person ever. Just for anybody listening, I don't refer to myself as money. That is not the case at all.
But you got called money for 4 straight days.
I did, yeah. For a guy who didn't make any money. I mean, personally, I did, but didn't give out any winning bets.
I'll say this, Chris. When an Aussie makes fun of you, it means that they like you. The more fun they make, the more they like you. You're a good bloke. You're a good sport. And we did, to be fair, have you swinging for the fences to have the content be quite interesting. So, and I do love that you went out there. And honestly, you broke it down when we talked about it on those shows as well. If you had taken your ridiculous long parlays as individuals, as singles, Chris would have made you a money man. He would have made the money for you. So I would suggest you listen to his stuff and get involved on what he's got to say, because for the majority of picks, if you separate them out, he was on the money.
Well, actually, Chris, pump your dub club right now because you got the free week on the go.
I do. Yeah. So
because you lost.
Yeah. So last night I do what I do. And this is actually the first time that I've done it and lost, because normally I only do it when I'm very confident in a bet. So last night I had Washington plus 3.5 first half, and they were up 14-7. You know, they tied it up. So it was 14-14. And then with 1 minute and 36 seconds left, Washington had the ball. All they had to do was run out the clock. All they needed was a first down. And what do? They go 3 and out. They punt the ball, and the backup quarterback brings them all the way back down since he scores. Long story short, I went on my Instagram and I said, if this loses, I will give everyone and anyone 100% free week. So, I'll put my foot in my mouth, is what it is. Expensive week. But yeah, right now, if you go on my Instagram, Money Mills Locks, I also posted on the story, free week. You get access to everything, all sports, the Tour Championship, full slate of picks. And then obviously we have preseason for NFL week 3, and then we have week 0 of college on Saturday. So you get everything for free. So there's nothing to lose.
Well, let's try to give out some winning picks here, but I do want to harken back to that rainstorm. Do you remember the guy that we bummed the cigarettes off of, who was there, the artist?
Yes.
So we're smoking just outside of it, just before the rain hits, and we see it coming in. And this guy, he did not look like an artist at all, but he was good on him. Made some pretty cool stuff. But he's just sitting there smoking. So we bummed the cig off, and we finished smoking the cigarette. He just lights up one off of another, and he did it 4 times in a row. And he looked at me. He goes, "My late mama told me one thing: there's something you love in this world, never stop doing it." And I love smoking. I was like, this guy is the best.
Yeah. And then we proceeded to go to his home, and we slept there, and we enjoyed ourselves. And, we're going to be going back there next year to Memphis, staying with him.
So we have a new segment on the show this week. It is the Picks of the Week, presented by Johnnie Walker. Get yourself some Johnnie Walker. Drink responsibly and bet responsibly with some of these bets. I got 3 bets for the Tour Championship. Outright winners. I'm going to run these ones by you. Here they are, Ben. I want to hear from you first. I'm going back to the well because I haven't bet him all season, but everyone else has. He hasn't won. Tommy Fleetwood, 16-1. Going back to JJ Spawn at 33-1. And our good friends at coolbet.com have graciously boosted up Cam Young for me to 35-1, Ben. Those are my 3 bets. The Johnnie Walker Picks of the Week.
I tell you what I do love. I love the Tommy Fleetwood one. I have this feeling that the story could come out of nowhere. That, he obviously has melted down so many times. He keeps not winning, but he's right there. I mean, if you want to be a little bit more cautious, you go there without Scotty Scheffler markets and just take him off the table, and then you're looking great. But yeah, I could see it. As a old sports writer, a grizzled, when I used to do that, you always were looking for the story, the good story, and they used to come up. And this would be one if Fleetwood could finally get off the schneid, as the Yanks call it, or the duck, as I say, or the goose egg, as we talked about. It would be a week to do it with only 29 guys to beat. So he's hitting it amazingly. He's got reasonable form there before. As I said, he only has to beat a handful of guys. So he's definitely one that I've got my eye on for the story as much as anything. And then who else? You said Cam Young at the big odds. Cam Young is obviously still trying to make his name for that Ryder Cup pick. So he's got plenty to play for. He's going to really be trying to hammer down for the whole 4 days, regardless of where he stands. And the thing that we have to mention, if we haven't, I'm sure everybody knows that's been watching your shows or whatever, but there's no starting strokes. They're all starting from 0. They're all got a chance, whereas in the previous years, if you were down the back end, you had no shot. And now they can do it. So everyone's got a shot. Young's been in great form. He has to keep it in the fairway, as you said, so it can be teed up on that lovely grass. The really only problems I saw last year after all the renovations for players was the rough around the greens. So if they can keep out of that, anyone's a good shot. Their scrambling has to be pretty good to make it get done. And JJ Spawn, I don't know. I don't know about him. I feel like he might have had his moment and might be on the way back down, but I was wrong about him every time he's popped this year. So I can't go too hard against it.
Chris, these driver heavy courses that you do need to be relatively accurate on, especially as Ben was saying, after the redesign, this Bermuda rough is just going to sit down. Remember how deep the rough was in Memphis? It's the same this week.
Yeah.
Yeah, honestly, you're better off if you're somebody who hits fairways 50% of the time and you spray it completely. You're actually better off because if you're like a foot or two off the fairway, that's worse than being off in the gallery. Like we saw that last year. Guys off the first tee, they were hitting it in the tents, but they were getting free drops and getting up and down for par versus you're a foot or two off the fairway and you're scrambling for bogey. Yeah, I mean, we know this course. We see the history of this course. Obviously, with the renovations, last year it changed it a little bit. But this is a horses for courses type track. It's a very similar type golfer that tends to win. But at the end of the day, it's going to come down to putting. It's a putting contest on these greens, from my perspective. And to answer your question, just around the picks, how fitting would it be for a guy who's never won before to be crowned your FedEx Cup champion with one career win, and it happens to be the Tour Championship? We just saw something very similar in the most ridiculous league there is in LIV, where a guy who won 5 times lost to Jon Rahm. I mean, it would just be a very continuous, ridiculous story. And Ben nailed it. I mean, it's just fitting.
You make a great point there, mate, in terms of it's the circuit breaker that maybe needs to really change the format, right? It's the scenario where, look, they've changed it this year. We've got away from the silly starting strokes, which was, crazy anyway. And it was the worst betting week when they had those, because imagine Scheffler starting at -10 this week. You couldn't get a bet on it. It'd be -5,000 before you start. So at least we got rid of that. But at the same time, it doesn't marry up with what you want to call a playoff scenario, does it? It's not playoffs in the true sense. So, I've had my thoughts over the years, but it's good that at least we'll see a contest without all the garbage side stories, and we'll see what happens. But if Fleetwood does win, or someone who hasn't won, or the guy in 30th, Novak or someone else does it, and then we'll hear the whining from the top players again about how this isn't the right format.
Is there just a scenario where there is no fixing the Tour Championship because no one gives a shit about this event? Like, at best, it's the 9th most important tournament every year, regardless of what you do.
Absolutely. But I think here's the issue, right? Like, if you want to call it playoffs, you've got to actually make it head-to-head battles and playoffs, right? Golf doesn't lend itself towards that. So to me, the history of golf has always been you have the money title or the regular season title or whatever, and that's okay for an extent, right? That's like Premier League soccer in the UK. First past the post, you get a winner. It's awesome. Playoffs are also awesome. So let's have 2 systems. Let's really reward the end of year or regular season money guy, and it can go to the Tour Championship if you like in terms of those venues. But then I want a real playoffs. If you're going to do something, have a match play component, have it where you're actually putting guys head to head. And I have a few theories, as you know, Pat, but whether or not we can go through it all on here, I don't know. But where we end up giving a big advantage to those guys at the top to hopefully help them to the end, but at the same time have this head-to-head combat.
So, Chris, do you have any fixes for this? I want to get to Ben's because I don't really remember if it's a good idea or a bad idea, because I think I had pounded a bottle of wine when he told me. It had something to do with like triple elimination and stuff like this. Like, this sounds kind of intriguing. But do you have any basic fixes for this, or should you just be like, just don't care? Who cares about it?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the way that they've built it and the way that they've looked at it is they don't want the Scotty Schefflers, the Rory McIlroys not there at the Tour Championship. They don't want them they want them relevant on that Sunday, making a charge, etc. That makes for good TV. And at the end of the day, that's what it's all about, right? The TV rights, the revenue, etc. But if you look at every other sport, if you look at a playoff, everybody loves an underdog, and favorites get beat all the time. The best team doesn't win the championship every single year. And that's just what happens. Thing is, golf is very different for whatever reason. So for me, the way I look at it is whether you're doing 50 guys, 70 guys, 30 guys, I think the way that it should be is if you make the playoffs, right, you make the top 70, the following week, whoever's in the top 50 should move on. Forget the points for the whole year, right? They already, if you think about it, Scotty Scheffler, Rory McIlroy, these guys, they're already getting the Comcast money, right? Before he even hit a shot, Scotty made another 18 million off that, and then he's going to get rewarded again for being first. So I just feel like it's got to be tournament by tournament. But for me, I'd love to see match play. But then again, I was listening to Roy today, and he made total sense. How can you reward and have a final event be match play when everything that got them to that point for the entire year was stroke play? I don't know what the answer is, but I definitely don't think that is the answer either, because it's hard.
So well, hold on. The only thing I would say is these playoffs are different than playoffs in any other sport because this isn't the most important thing of the year. People love it when JJ Spawn wins the US Open. They're like, holy shit, who is this guy? It's great that he won the US Open. What a story. It just doesn't work that like this is so manufactured. And it's because they got all of this title sponsor money they agreed to do. It's like, God, it's like sometimes when I do, let's say, sponsored pick segments on the show, it's like, hey, Pat, do you want some money? Yeah, I'd love some. Here, have a segment. It felt like it's like shoehorned into the season for no problem. And I don't think that match play works unless there's real stakes on the line, unless you have a different variant of it. So I'm going to box everyone out here, Ben. Give us the entire proposal about how you think the FedEx Cup playoff should work.
Okay. Well, I'm going to try to be as succinct as I can. This is born out of the format change that I wanted at the WGC match play, which was player supported, but I couldn't get it over the line while I was at the tour. Okay. And it's essentially where it's changing the format to mirror something that you would see in the Australian rugby competitions or the Australian rules competitions or certain playoffs in other parts of the world that aren't America, where you reward people for being top of their league or in the top brackets of their league when it comes to playoffs. I'll say it like this. In the rugby that I follow, the National Rugby League in Australia, they have a top 8 final system. 8 teams make the playoffs. In the weeks of the playoffs, 1, 2, 3, and 4 are a bracket, and 5, 6, 7, and 8 are a bracket, right? So 1 will play 4, 2 will play 3. Winners of that move on, get a week off, and go to the next stage. Losers drop to the following weekend, and at the bottom bracket, 5v8, 6v7, they're in straight elimination from World Go. They have to win to survive. They win. They move to the loser of those bigger teams from the week before, and so on and so on. So there is something on the line at all times. Now, if you try to extrapolate that to golf and the playoff scenario, you go to 128 players now make the playoffs again. You churn the playoffs into a 2-week scenario, not a 3, not a 4, 2-week scenario at really good golf courses. You find places to go. It gives us that drama in the season at the end of the regular season for the 128, which was used to be 125, but to get your card. But we're also looking at splitting that in half. So you've got the top 64 and the next 64. If you finish in the top 64 of the regular season, you get rewarded. Obviously, one gets all that money, the 18 million and what as you go down. But you also become automatically in the signature events for the following season. 64 guys made the top bracket of the playoffs. They're locked in for next year. Another thing to be watching as the season goes on. When we turn up to week 1 of the playoffs, on Thursday, 1 plays 64. So Scheffler plays whoever number 64 is on Thursday. And at the same time, 65 is playing 128. But the difference is the top guys are playing to get a day off. They win on Thursday, they go to Saturday. If they lose, they drop into Friday's elimination scenario. The bottom guys who 65 to 128, they're straight elimination from day one. So 65 plays 128, 66, 127, you get the picture. They're playing straight away elimination. They've made the playoffs. Well done, you got your card, but if you want to go on, you've got to win. Each time you move, each player from that day, after that first Thursday, everyone is elimination from then on, whether they've got a day off and moved to Saturday and got to the final, whatever it is, 32, or whether or not they're playing through the bracket. To reward the big players, Scheffler keeps his number 1 scenario. He's always number 1 seed, no matter what, even if 64 beats him. So on Friday, the highest seed always plays the worst remaining seed. So if 128 managed to beat 65, that's a good effort, well done. Your reward is Scheffler lost to 64, so you're playing Scheffler. Now, if that guy can beat 64, then beat Scheffler, that's someone that we can talk about. You mentioned JJ Spawn. It becomes the underdog hero story, right? Scheffler's lost 2 in a row against way worse opponents. No whining. You won your 18 million. You had a shot. Bad luck. It's not going to happen, though, because he's got that extra chance. He's more than likely going to make it through to Saturday on Thursday. Half of them will. So I'm guaranteeing half of the top 64 will make it to Saturday. It'll be more because half of them that lose will win again on Friday. So you're getting the big names there. That's taking care of TV for them. You're also giving Scheffler and number 2, Rory, and number 3, whoever, the easiest run. If they happen to lose at any stage or any match they play, they always take on the worst seed left. So Scheffler happens to lose day 1. Now he's getting to play, whether it's 128 or might be 125 who managed an upset, or 124, whoever it is, he's got that guy. He wins again. He moves back to Saturday. Now he plays whoever's the worst left. It might be 99 by now. It might be 97. Whoever it is, he's always getting the worst. So if someone is making a run from the back through, they've had to beat top 10 players of the season. So if some Neville nobody has beaten 65, then he's beaten world number 2, then he's had to beat world number 1, then he's had to beat world number 4, or whatever it is, that's a story no matter who it is. And we managed to keep this elimination process going from there. You get down to 16 through the first week. The top 16 come back and do it all again the following week in the big finale. You break them down into the top 8 and the bottom 8 again. 1v8 day 1 to 1v4, 1v8 day 1, 9v16 day 1, bottom 9 through 16 of straight elimination from day 1, 1 through 8. And if this is Scheffler again, he can lose again on the second week Thursday and get away with it because he's Scotty Scheffler and because he did so well, guaranteeing the easiest run for anyone who's played well all season to potentially go through to the finish. I know that's a lot. I'm sure you have questions. Someone hit me with something in case I've sounded like a moron.
I think it's a pretty good idea.
Yeah. So it's just rewards. It's like any system in playoffs and anyone not from America will recognize what I'm talking about because it is a system that works in a lot of different sports for team sports, and you just extrapolate it into match play.
Ben, Chris and I are both not from America. I don't know. I can't speak for
sorry,
Chris.
North America.
I have not heard of this sort of stuff. The explaining of this to audiences might get a bit tricky.
Okay, yes. But it's the explaining is hard until I put it on paper and show people. And then it really comes very succinct. It just becomes a bracket. Yeah. No, it's a straight bracket. Okay, let's look at the NFL, or let's look at what you guys are doing in NFL, right? How many teams make the playoffs now? 7 on each side, right? So let's just assume it was 8 instead of 7. It's 8 now. 1, the seed plays in the first week, but against number 4 seed, and 2 plays against number 3. 2 plays against number 3.
You explained it perfectly.
If they lose, they get another chance. Yeah.
You got to remember who we're talking to out here of the general viewing population.
I know who we're talking to. I know, but the reality is, and again, this was actually born, to be fair, it's a system that's born for the match play tournament. It's 64 golfers, 1 week, right? I just extrapolated it over 2 weeks if you want to turn it into a playoff scenario. And because, as I said, it brings in the 128 for a card. It brings in the 64 for signature events. All year you're fighting to be in the top 64 for 2 reasons. You'll get a second bite on the first day in the match play competition. And 2, you've got your signature event status. It brings in storylines at every level. The top guys are trying to win that bonus money that they always do, the Comcast. You make that a big deal. Look, it's a big deal to finish number 1, but also you're going to get that easier ride. Like, as I said, I know that we want Scotty Scheffler and Rory McIlroy to be there, but if they don't beat, throw me a name, like, Sam Stevens and Webb Simpson over the first 2 match play, if they lose to both of those guys back to back on the first 2 days, sorry, like, you don't deserve to stay on, right? Like if you lost to Rory, which sometimes would happen in whatever else, then, or a bigger name, or even if it was, Scheffler versus Sam Burns, because Burns is 19 and he's 1 and he's in the same pod and bracket, and you've got to follow who's won what and who's tied this, and which match means something. That didn't work either. The straight elimination in the old days match play was the best, fairest way, but it was awful for television. Tiger Woods got beat by a couple of Aussies many times. Nick O'Hearn, Peter O'Malley just smashing out Tiger and ruining the TV audience. Well, in that case, Tiger would have lost that match, been able to survive to the next day, and then he would have been so fired up that he would have killed whoever the next guy was up, and then potentially got a rematch later on with O'Malley down and further along in the tournament. So
that's what they did at the Dell too, right? Match play, because it was single elimination, and they put you into pods, and then they had They took away all square and they made it ties, and then it was all math and whiteboard. And that's kind of what they got away from in
Brutal.
this playoffs, right? Like for me, the staggered start was idiotic. Giving people shots, like giving Scotty shots. Scotty is minus 10,000 to finish top 20 this week with no shots. Minus 10,000. That's insane. I mean, he could roll his ankle, fall down a hill. I guess they still think he's going to finish in the top 20. It's just, I don't know. Like, it's got to be something. At least this week and in previous years, it was actually a bit of a cash cow with the staggering start. Because what I used to bet on was forget the winner. I would bet on who was going to be the best in the tournament, taking away those shots, right? Like Colin Morikawa last year that we smacked on, right? Trying to find that value down the board that, hey, they may not win the tournament, but they could go crazy over 4 rounds. And then you just get at least the low score for the tournament. That kind of
I actually like that one too. I had Kevin Na split with John Rahm like 3 years ago.
Yeah, remember that.
And that was coming at big money. But the one thing I do notice about the Tour Championship is basically just back guys have been playing well the past 2 weeks.
Yeah.
The hot hand scenario has been the case in the FedEx Cup Playoffs from back in day one. Or Billy Horschel, the year that he won the FedEx Cup, right? Just going bang bang, and it was Chris Kirk, I think, that had won. Well, when they had 4 events, he might have won the first 2 or been right up there before Horschel won the last 2. Is a scenario where guys who get hot stay hot. Victor Hovland a couple of years ago comes to mind too. One in Chicago, went on and won the whole thing. It is an absolute factor because they're playing well and they're progressively getting less guys to play against, right? So you're taking out many anomalies. And I am fascinated that you did hit that market last year and before, guys, because it can be difficult to try to ascertain how mentality for players will change things when they're not actually playing to that leaderboard you guys are betting on. And that's another part that was fascinating over the last few years. This side battle that nobody really knew what was going on, except for the punters out there trying to make some cash. So it was a very interesting scenario there. But at the same time, the tournament itself was losing its luster, having such a high variance of starting strokes for such a dominant player like Scotty Scheffler.
The only people that you really wouldn't want to back because you never know what they're going to do in that situation are the Aussies, but we don't have to worry about that this year, do we?
Oh, brutal. The first time ever since the FedEx Cup began, and in fact since I think 1998, that there hasn't been an Australian in the Tour Championship. And quite frankly, not good enough. The boys will be upset with me saying this, but it's a dog shit year for the Australian golfers. Outside of Minwoo Lee getting his first win, which was great and well deserved for Minners, but he wasn't able to get the consistency from that. And also a young Sunday Red, Carl Phillips, winning the opposite field event and getting his name up in lights a little bit as well, but not even getting through to the playoffs. So yeah, for Adam Scott and Jason Day and the likes of Cam Davis, it was a letdown year to be fair, not getting to the Tour Championship and not locking up all those major starts that these guys have had over the years, right? So it's disappointing to see. And Adam Scott used to always remind me that he won the Tour Championship the year before it was worth $10 million. So this time he's not even there to have a crack at any of the cash.
You forgot that Leishman won in Doral.
Yeah, good old Leash. Yes, look, the Ripper are doing their best. They're doing their best. It was good to see Leash, to be fair. He'd been in the wilderness a long time. And he'd also been in the wilderness. Someone's opened my garage door, fellas. Look at that. Sensational. He'd been in the wilderness and hadn't won in a long time. But he'd also on fire. My family, I'm going to kill them. They're going up and down, up and down. Sensational. Sorry, we're going to get there, Pat. This is a joke. I will say it was good to see my good friend Mark Leishman finally win again after being in the wilderness for a long, long, long time. Okay, and not only that, but he got back to the Open Championship via qualifying. Not necessarily popped there. He had a little bit of a run. That he was a good long shot that week, and I know that we had a few guys on him that week. But yes, it was nice to see him win. But I don't know how you equate that to the PGA Tour victories. You'll have to ask my more savvy live friends how they thought that went.
Chris, do you think Ben's thing can work? I mean, I don't know if it would work, but I would like to see it 1 year. If we're just going to pretend like this is a real thing that no one cares about anyway, why not try something like complete? They tried something ludicrous that zero people liked. Yeah. At least you could talk yourself into this. How it would actually work out in practice, I have no idea. But at least it's intriguing to think about.
So they changed things because the year that Tiger Woods won the Tour Championship, Justin Rose won the FedEx Cup. And people are like, anybody who's not following golf goes, what the fuck's going on? This doesn't make any sense. So then they changed it, and they said, well, if somebody crushes it all year long, they deserve to have an advantage, hence the aggregate scoring. Scotty starts with the lead. Okay, that made sense. But then you have Scotty with an 8-shot lead going into Sunday. It's like, okay, the tournament's over, nobody watched, viewership's down. It's a conflict, you're just messing things up anyways. This year, at least it's, everybody starts it even, you win, it is what it is. But again, that person who played great all year, like a Scotty Scheffler, who's a million times further ahead in FedEx Cup points than anybody else, doesn't get a huge advantage. But at the end of the day, that's just a golf tournament. I think with what Ben's getting at is it makes a lot of sense. I think it, rewards people for playing really well, but it also gives you the underdog story where if somebody just happens to go nuts over 2 weeks and takes down the big names, hey, that's a pretty cool story to follow. The problem is that most people are stupid as shit and they're not going to be able to follow it. So as long as the tour understood it and they made it simple for people like me and other people to understand, then I don't see a problem with it. At the end of the day, I want to see good golf. I want to see the best players, but I'm also down if somebody just plays insane and takes out a Rory. I love watching Rory lose. There's nothing better than that. So if that's a scenario, I'm all for it.
Well, the simplest way to put it, boys, is that day one has a few scenarios going. We have a top bracket and a bottom, right? But from literally after day one of each tournament, it is just man on man, winner goes on. And the anomalies I was talking about were trying to, I guess, fix the scenarios that TV and other people had. And that is just, I'm going to give Scheffler and Rory and whatnot a leg up. And anyone who wants to whine about that, you just point to the fact that those players were better over the season. Simple as that. And anyone that wasn't, you've still got your shot. Have a crack. And look, as I said, I don't care who it is. But if you've got a name that comes from nowhere that can, has made it to the final 16 and they've had to do it by, beating Burns and then Scheffler and then Rory and then Justin Thomas and then, whoever it might be next that was the top of the system, then they will be a great story. That'll be on ESPN top 10 in itself. And that's going to bring viewers as well. Look at this bloke. You've never heard of him, but he just took out, 4 top 10 players in the world over 4 days.
It will, even thinking about the USAM, that was kind of the story there when they had the kid who was local to Harding Park and just kept beating everybody.
I know the kid.
You know him?
Well, okay, so
how many kids do you know, Ben?
A grizzled old Scottish golf writer is his father. He'd been in the tour media centres for years and years and years. Lawrence Donegan, and that's his son. That they live there. Obviously, Scottish heritage, but live in the San Francisco area. And the young fella was going hard, and we were trying to get him through to the end because we wanted to see that journalist back at Augusta. He's one of the ones that would be in the top 3 least welcome over my 20 years, sort of 15 years covering golf. And there's certain people that ruffle the feathers of those in charge. And Lawrence, champion bloke, legend, but he doesn't hold back. And I think that they would have been a little shaky knowing that he was coming back with his son to potentially play in the Masters. So that was an interesting thing we were all rocking and rolling to watch.
So he's not a Scottish golf writer anymore?
Oh, he does a little bit on the side, but yeah, no, he was. I'm misremembering. I wish I could tell you who he wrote for. It was one of the huge papers, or the huge, back in the golden era of newspapers and sports writing. Lawrence was a big writer for those, and I said, big voice on tour, big personality, champion fella, super cool, but just wouldn't hold punches. If somebody was doing something that was no good, he let them know. If someone choked, they'd know. If the tour needed to be held account for something, he'd let him know. And his young fella's a great golfer, and he's going to be on the tour at some point. But it would have been interesting to see him back at Augusta. He always asked the tough questions at the Augusta press conferences.
For over a century, Johnnie Walker has shared its bold spirit with the game of golf. Now, crafted with Devereux Golf, Johnnie Walker introduces the Johnnie Walker Blue Label-inspired Sunday Golf Bag, elevating the game with sleek design, Blue Label hues, and refined gold accents. Celebrate your hole-in-one with a premium Sunday bag crafted by Devereux Golf. Submit proof of your achievement to johnniewalker.com/blue-in-1. Please drink responsibly. Look, I don't bounce back exactly the way that I used to when I was 20 years old, and it used to be I can either have a great night or just have a struggle the next day. That is until I found pre-alcohol. The Z-Biotics pre-alcohol probiotic drink is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle the rough mornings after drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's a buildup of this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for the rough days after drinking. Pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. Just remember to make pre-alcohol your first drink of the night, drink responsibly, and you'll feel the best tomorrow. The final days of summer are here for you to enjoy. Whether you're heading to the beach, camping in the woods, or squeezing one last vacation road trip, do not forget to bring Z-Biotics pre-alcohol probiotic drink. Drink a pre-alcohol before drinking and enjoy every day of summer to the fullest. Go to zbiotics.com/PatMayo to learn more and get 15% off your first order when you use PatMayo at checkout. Z-Biotics is packed with a 100% money-back guarantee, so if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Remember, head to zbiotics.com/PatMayo and use code PatMayo at checkout for 15% off. Chris, anything you're looking at day one?
There's some serious value in first round leaders. You know, I love to go after those, and whether it's 1 units or 2 units. But what's interesting is that there's guys that people that I'm looking at. Okay, Burns, Young, Griffin, those 3 guys, like we discussed earlier, great form, great round, first round scoring. But what's crazy to me is that these guys are still plus 2,500, right? Plus 2,000. And there's only 29 players. These are the odds that they get in a typical tournament with 140 guys. So to me, there's a lot of value. You look at Scotty. Scotty's 5-1. If you think Scotty's going wire to wire, shit, go on him plus 500. There's only 29 guys, right? 29 guys to beat. The problem is that most likely probably going to tie, which is dead heat. So you're cutting that in half. If it's 3, maybe you want to get a little bit less. Scotty Scheffler did lead after round 1. He had the lowest score last year as well with a -6. But I think there's a significant amount of value, not only there, but in the placement markets for first round, right? You can bet on guys, first round top 5, first round top 10. You can get a Russell Henley who always comes out fast. He's great course history, plus 125 to be in the top 10, after round 1. You have to beat 20 guys. There's 20 guys there he'll easily beat. So there's a lot of value in the first round.
So Henley plus 125?
Oh, yeah, that's a smash. That is a good one, because I think Henley's a chance to win the tournament. If you're staying away.
So I really like that one, and one that's a little bit riskier because he didn't play last week, and maybe you guys know I don't have the details on where Sepp Straka was last week. I understand it was something family related, so I don't think it has anything to do with his game or his form. But he's at plus 185 to be a top 10 round 1.
I like that as well.
And he's a guy that likes to go low.
I like that decision as well. I'll just say that.
I was actually looking at Straka for tournament winner here as well. I didn't end up pulling the trigger, but I don't know why he took the week off, like you said, Chris. But I assume it's family related, not affecting his golf swing with an injury. But I also don't know what state of mind. He might be unaffected. He might be affected that all of a sudden it gets a bit dicey.
Yeah, correct. At the end of the day, what's our job, right? We're trying to find value that makes sense. And this is a guy that played well all year. Yes, he's hit or miss, but in a field of only 30 players, I don't think he's getting much respect. He's been disrespected a lot this year, but no more than this year. You can get him at plus 5,000 to win the thing, even if you want to remove Scotty. For this week, for me, around the whole Scotty conversation, we may get into it. I may be jumping the gun here, but you can actually take Scotty to win the entire tournament at plus 150. But what a lot of people aren't looking at, if you like Scotty to win the tournament, take him at top American. If you take him at top American, who does that remove? The next 3 guys lowest in the odds: Rory, Oberg, Fleetwood, Hovland. You take all those guys out. The next best guy is Henley, and he's plus 1,100 to be low American. So if you like Scotty, just throw in an extra unit and go all in on him top American. That makes way more sense.
So there's that part of it. Ben, let me run this by you, because you talked about the non-Scotty market, and Jeff and I briefly discussed this on Monday before most of the odds had actually come out, that if you're that terrified, and I know you have fewer outs this way, but you end up with better odds. That instead of doing the betting without Scotty market, what if you just do a straight forecast? So let's say I bet on Cam Young to win, right? But let's say I wanted to bet him in the non-Scotty market. He's probably like 20-1. What if you just have exact finish, Scotty over Cam Young, 1 and 2? Then you get 45-1. Does that interest you at all?
Well, there's something there, but I know that in my luck, it would just be the reverse of that. Then he would actually win, and Scotty Scheffler would be second. So that scares me a little. I do want to get Chris's thoughts too on this sort of stuff too. Like, I noticed that he was talking about first round leader, and Scheffler's not notoriously a great first rounder, but with less players, and last year he actually had the lowest score. If you're doing that, you can sort of parlay into different markets. When I say not parlay, but use different markets, you've got birdies or better. For him to have 5 or more, you've got the top 5, as you said, or leader after round 1. There are other ways, in my mind, to get on Scheffler rather than straight from the beginning. If he runs away with it, he runs away with it, but you haven't missed these huge odds, right? The 250 on the one, like, you haven't missed anything major, and you can get those odds or something close to it on a good or a reasonable matchup on day 2, or a reasonable matchup on day 3, or someone to make a move into the top 10. You can still get those odds or a bet on those odds away from Scheffler. So I do usually stay away from the without Scheffler or without player markets because I want the big odds. In this case, you could stay away and just try to make your Scheffler money elsewhere.
I'm looking at first round matchups here. I don't believe that these are 2 balls. They're not. Oh, going head to head. Chris, do you bet on Ben Griffin every week? Has he been your cash cow?
He's made me so much money. And he's a guy, I just mentioned Seb Straka, right? Ben Griffin is a guy who's just not getting the respect. Again, did you see the video last week about how he overdosed on creatine?
Additionally, he was clearly joking when he said that. And I think that people's brains have been broken by the internet, that they can't pick up on sarcasm anymore.
Yeah. But it was just amazing what he did. Like, if anybody didn't notice or watch it last week, first hole, he 4-putted from 2 feet, made triple. Next one, banged it out of bounds, double bogey on the second hole, and then bogeyed the third hole. He was 6 over through 3 holes. He then proceeded to go 7 under on the next 11 and still finished inside the top 20 and won his matchup for the day. Ben Griffin can make birdies. Ben Griffin can also smack the ball. He hits the ball a long way. His swing is a little unconventional, but he gets the job done, and he gets a lot of value. Like round 1, his matchup, he's with Tommy Fleetwood. He's plus 165 with a tie. I just think that's significant value for a guy who just goes super low. So, yes, I do bet on Ben Griffin a lot because more times than not, he's plus money and he wins.
I do love the volatile guy, in those matchups. The one that's going to either just destroy and win or potentially get boat raced, but it just is fun to see them when they go low and get things done. And look, I know that Ben Griffin still has a bit of a chip on his shoulder that people don't really know who he is yet. He's going to be in the Ryder Cup team. He's going to be doing this. So he wants to put a show on this week, that's for sure.
Ben, is there any player here that you'd be going against? Just someone out of these? I mean, they've all made it. Sungjae is probably the easy answer to this question, but there's like a handful of guys that are like, nah, I don't want anything to do with them.
I'm not convinced that Corey Connors is still 100% fit. Your Canadian boy. He was up there and had that big crash on Sunday. He had the wrist injury earlier in the season. I'd love to get inside Camp Connors and find out if there's anything niggling or going on around there, because I see, just because of his name, he's sort of expected to finish about midfield, right? 15th, 14th or better is the sort of the line for the position markets with him. He's never finished better than, I think, 20th or 22nd in the 30-man field in the 3 or 4 times he's been there before. He should play well here. It's a, ball striker's place, but he hasn't in the past. He hasn't seemed to like it in the past. And I wonder if there's something niggling going on there. So I'm a little wary of him. And so there's potential value in matchups against Corey. It could be way off. He says he's okay, but certain rounds that I've seen of him, like including Sunday last week, have shown that something's not quite right with Corey.
I agree completely. I love that. Corey Connors looked terrible. He looked terrible in Memphis too. He couldn't make a putt over 2 feet. He struggles so much on the greens, and if the rest of his game is not where it needs to be, I mean, he just struggles. And he's up against Patrick Cantlay in day one, and it's pretty much even money for a guy who, again, great course history, went crazy in the FedEx Cup, right? He has good history there as well. I love Cantlay first round against.
Wouldn't that be another storyline? We talked about the stories before that would maybe break the system.
Yeah.
Cantlay, who's everyone said hasn't played that great. And look, he's had better finishes than people realise. He's been up there thereabouts. He just hasn't sniffed many victories or a chance at them. But if he came through and won it all, forced his way into that Ryder Cup team through that way, that would be another interesting scenario for the Tour to have to deal with. So we'll see. I know that Xander would like Patrick to play well this week so that he can justify being his teammate on that Ryder Cup team.
Well, who do you think ends up getting the more pull here? I think that Cantlay ends up making the team regardless of what happens. I think he's kind of ingrained at this point. And Ben, maybe you can speak to this a little bit, but we saw this happen to Rory last year when he was head of the Players Council. He kind of had a shitty year, and now it's Cantlay, and he's having a shitty year.
Yeah, when you have a lot on your plate, it can be a problem. I remember it was now a couple of years ago that Cantlay jumped on the board or whatnot and started doing. He was playing brilliant. It was the year he was playing brilliantly in LA. At Tiger's event, the Genesis Invitational. It looked like he was going to win it going away before Hideki came storming home on Sunday for over 100-1 to win at Riviera. I was walking with Cantlay's coach and crew that whole week prior to that, and the writing should have been on the wall for me because they were talking about how he had so many more distractions, how he's at this meeting, at that meeting, and sure enough, things fell apart and off, and things didn't sort of go great for him from there. Things have been like that. He seems to be sometimes distant, sometimes not in it. When you have all those things going on, those balls to juggle, it can be tough. But I do know, as I said, that Xander knows that he'd like to play with him. They do make a formidable team most of the time together. That they will be even more formidable at home versus when they were away. They dominated at the President's Cups a few times. I know that's different competition, but they're just comfortable together. And that helps when you're in a match play scenario, especially when you're doing alternate shot. I mean, that's a huge, huge format that you have to have some level of comfortability with.
Who gets their way then? Do you think that Xander says, I want Cantlay and he'll be on the team? Or Scotty says, I want Burns and he'll be on the team?
Can you do both?
I don't think you can leave off Cam Young. Even if Cam Young comes dead last this week, I think he's on the team.
I think you could say that would be what would be fair. But I wouldn't be surprised if it goes the other way. Burns had a very good finish last week, which was extremely timely and had been, look, my understanding is he got a rocket put up his ass. You want to be part of this? You better do something. Now, Cantlay's had that same rocket put up his ass, right? So Cantlay's the one that could miss out, obviously, if he doesn't show up this week. And show up, I mean, not backdoor T9 or T8, but no, be there where the whips are cracking at some point. Right? Good start, get up there, be there within the chance on Sunday, something to show that you're ready to take on competition, right? Not just glide into a result. You want to be able to show you're going to be part of a competition. So that is on the tape. Now, but Keegan Bradley is the interesting factor in this, right? Because Keegs was never in the clicks. He was never in the fact that these team scenarios where I get to pick this guy and you have this guy, he got left out multiple times because he wasn't best mates with Spieth or best mates with whoever. So is he going to fall into helping the guys that essentially squeezed him out over the years? Or is he going to stand up and say, no, we're going to do it my way, and Cam Young's in, and so is Griffin, and so is all these guys, and I'm playing or I'm not playing? That's the fascinating thing for me.
What do you think, Chris?
I agree. I mean, it's interesting. Obviously, the Netflix, kind of brought us into a more personal experience with that whole thing. And the fact that they put him and his family on camera and did him dirty like that, I think that is still something that probably rubs him the wrong way. And yeah, he was always, he wasn't the cool kid. He wasn't in the cliques. So if somebody comes to me and I'm that person, am I going to be a big enough person to say it's all about the team? I want them to win. You guys, you play with this person well versus this person. Or am I going to pick the kids that remind me of me, right? The Youngs who have an opportunity, the Griffins who have an opportunity, who played well this year. I'm going to put those people on the team to set a precedent that is the best players that belong on the team, not who your best.
Well, It can work. It can work both
interesting.
ways though, because we have so many guys that kind of qualified that are kind of outside that loop, and then Griffin is going to be on the team. I think. One sec. Cam Young is going to be on the team, and then it comes down. So you could have Burns and Cantlay on the team. It's just then someone like Mav McNeely doesn't end up making it.
Yeah,
Who
and
played
I think Matt
amazing.
knows.
He's a bulldog, man. He played great again last week. He's making putts. I mean, Mav, he's got something. And I'll throw it back to you because I want to get your perspective on this. Is I saw Keegan at Bethpage a day ago, and he's supposed to come back here, Eastlake, and show up and play with all this on his mind. And he's going up against Novak round 1, and Novak's plus 170 against Keegan, who looked terrible last week. So to me, are you fading Keegan and going with a
Keegan
plus 70?
Keegan's a fade.
I see, but the thing is, Keegan, I agree. Keegan, I have actually pulled up right now. I have it with the without ties market. So if it's a tie, it's a push.
Yeah.
I'm looking at Novak plus 150 at CoolBet. Go sign up for CoolBet right now. Hit the description if you're in Canada outside of Ontario. So Mills, when you go back home, you can sign up for CoolBet and help me out. But plus 150 sounds good. But like Novak he was good in Memphis because he chipped in and made every putt. His driving was horrible. His irons were horrible.
Yeah.
And he was just awful last week. So I want to fade Keegan. Don't feel like this is the guy I want to fade him with.
Yeah, being finished dead last week, playing by himself on Sunday.
Yeah.
You want to maybe wait for the second round fade on Keegan. But in general, it's a decent strategy. Like maybe don't put the house on that 150, but it might be worth a little splash because he does have a lot on his mind. And it's also about like, should he play? Should he not play? He's slipped to 11th, I think, in the standings now after being much higher. He's one of the top players in the world rankings, though. The players themselves, the ones that I spoke to, seem to think, like, of course he should play. He's got to play. He's one of our best 12 players. But I feel like Keegan himself is wrestling with it in his mind, whether that's the right move or not. And that wrestle is what makes it hard to go to Eastlake, a place where, again, he hasn't done that great, and go win there or go contend there. No, his mind is elsewhere, and maybe that's okay. Maybe that's okay because the Americans, coming off another big loss over there, and they need to maintain the record that they've had at home with big wins. Otherwise, then they're really going to be under the gun.
Here's something that might be a little bit easier. I have two anti-Keegan bets for you guys. Round 1 on Bet365 right now, there's a matchup bet where you can bet Brian Harman without ties plus 105 over Keegan Bradley.
I love that. Harman's been great. Harman first round, if you go back all the way to the Open, he's been under par every single round for like the last 6 weeks. Yeah. He's a great pick.
Keegan also has just been like terrible at Eastlake for the majority of his career too.
Yeah, Harman hasn't been great there either for a guy that's from the area, but he hasn't been as bad as Keegan, and also Keegan's got all the other stuff on his mind. As I said, we just spoke about it all. I think it's a lot, and I don't blame him for it. And I'm not suggesting I want him to do poorly. I'm just saying that it's rough. It's a lot to deal with, and even just that dynamic we spoke about, like. Take yourself back to middle school for you guys or whatever, late elementary school where if you weren't one of the cool kids, you're trying to get in with the cool kids and you finally get in and then you've got to decide, do I be true to myself or do I, roll with what these guys have done all the time? It sounds silly, but it's a reality, right? Like, and they've given him the support now because he is captain. I thought it was an inspired choice to have someone that has that sort of passion to take the role. It just has thrown up this anomaly. I know that when they chose him, they weren't expecting that he would be in the mix. And it's not just this side of the Atlantic either that's got to deal with this stuff. The Europeans have got some interesting stuff if you go by their standings. I mean, you mentioned John Rahm, winning on Live. He's non-existent on their standings. You assume, is he getting picked? You've got Rasmus Højgaard making the team.
Yeah.
But Nikolai, twin brother, who they play epically together, is way down the list and has been played really poorly at the end of the season. So are you going to drop a Matt Fitzpatrick out of their lineup for a Højgaard that has played terrible to get that twin factor, or are you going to bring in Rahm to knock someone else out as well?
Yeah, you're going to put Rahm's on the team. Like Rahm's the biggest lock in the history of locks to be on the European team. And I think Fitz is too. I think that there's one spot available on Team Europe, and it's one of the Højgaards. And people are making this case for Harry Hull to be on the team. I just don't see it. Like if you really want to give the Americans a bone, bring Harry Hull to fucking Bethpage. That is not a Harry Hull course at all.
Yeah, the reincarnated Bryson. They want their own Bryson.
The Europeans
They
go
made him in a
deep on
lab.
the data too, by the way. So they will pick what the data tells Eduardo Molinari and Luke Donald. What it tells them, they'll pick it. And they'll send it out there. And they won't be apologetic about it. And that's how they've done well in Europe. They've taken it to places where they could set up the course. And they've done with it. And now they don't know what the setup will be, but they have an idea that it's going to be bomb, long course, whatever. They don't usually do as well there when it's more about distance than accuracy, but they will at least be able to pick their side and their teams within their side around that.
It's funny though, because I do feel like the better distance team now is the European team.
Could be.
Just look at their three best guys or four best guys. Rahm, Rory, Victor, and Ludwig are just mashers off the tee.
Yeah, and the other issue that the Americans have is their number one, Scheffler. If there is something that he needs to be, I guess, proven at, and this got me in trouble 18 months ago when I was trying to explain it, and he went on a run and just destroyed everyone. But at the time, he's like a flat track bully, right? He gets out in front and he just suffocates, and it's hard to run him down. He's very hard to beat. Before at the time, he hadn't really done much coming from behind. Now he's proven himself he's able to do that now. But in a one-on-one match play scenario, if someone gets ahead of him or someone puts his putter under pressure, that's where you can potentially find a weakness. And we've seen it. It's one round. It's not four. Over four, he's going to come back and beat you every time because he's just that much better. But I'm looking at it in terms of the international team over the years, whether it was Adam Scott or Hideki Matsuyama going in as number one. At the time, amazing ball strikers, just in pure form. They were on fire. But those are the guys that hit it to the fairway, hit it to 8 feet, and might three-putt. And if they're sitting there and hitting it to 8 feet, but the guy that they're playing against hits it to 20 and makes the 20-footer, then it was like 90% chance they'd miss that 8-footer. And that's the sort of thing that the Europeans can do to Scheffler. If you force him to have to make, rather than miss and then let him make, if you force him to make, if you make putts from outside his, that's when you might find a little window in a one-day head-to-head matchup.
I wouldn't find it surprising though, Chris, if Scheffler wasn't dominant at the Ryder Cup. Like Tiger wasn't always dominant. Phil wasn't always dominant. As Ben said, like the best guys are rarely the super dominant ones. It's usually like someone weird, like the year in France when Fleetwood and Molinari just beat up on everyone the entire week.
Yeah, Mollywood. And then Tom Kim on a losing team basically was like the energy and the spark of that team, right? Like it's typically not your big star that is the fan favorite that's getting people going. It's the, Patrick Reed from years prior. Yeah, I think that, Ben, I think you make a really great point. We know Scotty can miss these shorties, right? So I think that in match play, a lot of times the first ball in wins the hole. So you're going to have these scenarios where someone's going to chip in. It's going to be, hold it from the bunker. And then you have 5 feet for par and you end up losing the hole. So I think anything can happen. I think that the American team have their hands full more so than what people think. I'm looking forward to it. I was contemplating going to it, and I decided I'd rather just watch it on TV because I did the President's Cup last year, and while it was awesome, I did enjoy it probably more watching it on TV because you can see everything. But it shouldn't be interesting. But Jon Rahm is a lock for sure. If he didn't show up, I don't think Rory might quit golf. Right? He made it very clear. If Rahm is not on the Ryder Cup team, I'm not playing.
Well, clearly his talent is there and thereabouts. I was just bringing up that it's an interesting scenario.
Yeah.
And there'll be someone out there who will say it's not fair that Matt Wallace is missing this team and because he was 10th or whatever it is. Well, it is fair. He's a better golfer and he's been there and done that, and he's going to pair up with people and he's going to bring some energy, right? And that energy is important. That energy that we spoke about on these team events is important. And that's another reason why Sam Burns, it was very important that Sam Burns played well last week. The rocket was put on him. Come on, man, you've got to do something because Scheffler, is a different animal. He plays in his own bubble. He does his own thing. He focuses on his stuff, but he needs a teammate at the Ryder Cup. So he needs someone he likes, someone who gets him, someone who can play with him. And if he doesn't have that, can be a recipe for disaster, as we saw in Rome when he didn't have Sam Burns. He was in tears. They got boat raced. It can happen. So it was timely from Burns. I think Sam Burns knows that he needs to put up a big performance. So keep that in mind in your place markets, etc. this week.
Last thing, Ben, I want to go back to you. You told us a story about playing Augusta. Can you tell the people that story?
Okay, I was lucky enough that every year, if you're part of the media at Augusta National, they do a lottery, and about 24 guys, I think it is, or people, sorry, guys and girls, get to play the Monday after, right after the tournament, with the Sunday pins. You play the members' tees, but you play the Sunday pins. It's pretty awesome. Get a caddy, the whole shebang. You get to go there. And I said it's a lottery, and it was, for me, it was 2013, and at the time I was the Australian Associated Press golf writer. Huge week for us. Adam Scott goes on to win. I'm having the time of my life. I'm actually having drinks with Adam Scott in a green jacket at 2 a.m, knowing that I have a 9-something tee time at Augusta the next morning. So it was a very special time. But I get there, and this is the part I think you enjoyed. In my foursome were two wonderful photographers from Europe, single-digit handicappers, really great guys. One from America, one from Europe. And then the fourth was a young man from China there to cover Tin Lang. I don't know if you remember the 14-year-old back then who made it to the Masters and played as an amateur. They hit him with a slow play penalty as well. But anyway, this young journalist who was there to do any videoing, interviewing, writing, everything, had never played golf before, had never been on a course. He got pulled out of the lottery and off he went. He put his name in, and there he was playing with us at Augusta National for his first ever round of golf. Now, very broken English, as you can imagine. His poor caddy trying to figure out how to teach him golf on Augusta National during the day after the tournament conditions. We're talking, and it's not like they watered the greens. The greens were faster than they were for Sunday. They would just sort of let us go out there and do this. This poor caddy trying to teach the guy. Look, he had. I can't remember his name. I wish I could. We were calling him Mooney because there was part of his name had Moon in it, or whatever else, and we were trying to egg Mooney on for a while. Come on, mate, you can do it. Within 2 holes, he was off in his own world. Look, if I said he shot 180, that would be generous. A lovely young chap, as far as I could tell, but completely clueless to golf. And we went around that day, making our own memories, birdies, bogeys, whatever, triples if you count some of my holes. But old Mooney, maybe 250 shots, doing his best around Augusta National. First ever. He had to, the night before, what I could get out of it. The night before, I brought my own clubs because I knew I'm going to the lottery. Plus, I'm playing golf, the mornings of or during the week, having a great time with the journos. Mooney didn't have clubs. He'd never played golf. So we tried to help him how to get, he had to go to, another local club, and broken English explained that he needed golf clubs to play Augusta. No one believed him. It was a scenario where apparently it took him all night, all weekend, after the lottery comes out Saturday morning. He had to spend all that time trying to just find some golf clubs to use. Managed to do that. As I said, it was interesting. It was an experience nonetheless. And I don't think I even told you this part of the story, boys. So maybe 5 years ago now, I was at the Players' Championship. So again, this Augusta round was in 2013. I'm at the Players' Championship and I'm flown out there for the tour and I'm staying in a hotel, and someone gives me a text and says, can you bring one of our international media that's here this week from the same hotel to the course today? Yeah, of course, no worries. Just tell him to meet me in the lobby. Anyway, pick up this guy. He gets in my car and he's like, thank you, whatever. I said, where are you from? And he said, China. And I said, the only Chinese person I know that has been in golf was, and I started telling that story I was told. He says, yes, that's me. It was him. He was at the Players tournament. And thankfully I hadn't gone through the whole story again, but he was at the Players and I was bringing him out to the course. So we reminisced a little bit about that round. And he had played a few more rounds since then, but still not many. He had made a point to go to the driving range a few times, but again, not many golf courses in China for everyone to play. It was an interesting phenomenon. And so that was the funniest part of my story. Not the fact that I had, 2 birdies as a double-digit handicapper, and I beat the 2 single digits off the stick that day. No, not that. It was that old Mooney was doing his best, first time ever playing golf, Augusta National Masters pins and conditions.
And you can't.
So you watched him hit 250
Yes.
shots, and then you didn't even recognize Mooney when you saw him the next time.
No idea it was him. And he was one. He's like, yeah, I know you. I'm like, oh, awesome. Yeah, you can imagine. I was in my own world. I'm at Augusta National. You know, I was nervous as it was. You only get. It's so funny. They give you literally. It says you arrive at 1 hour exactly before your tee time. And if you try to turn up you roll up Magnolia Lane 5 minutes early, they'll say, not time. Go away. You have to wait till your moment and you go in. Like to the point where, I got there, they let you change in the champions locker room. I did that. And then I went to the pro shop and then they were looking for me because it was almost tea time and I hadn't been to the range where everyone else was warming up and doing whatever else. I was just shopping and doing other things. I'm like, I don't need to hit. And my caddy's like, no, I need you to hit. And, again, this is unconfirmed, but I believe that the caddies sometimes will have a bet with each other on their own player, having no idea how good they are, finding out what they can, and then they have bets. And so my guy really wanted me to hit 10 shots or something on the range before we started, and I didn't know what. I'm like, I never warm up. I just hit a few putts and we go. So, no, hit some. So I find out later that he was working out, what they were trying to work out what the odds should be and the handicaps and whatnot. And my guy was awesome because he cleaned up. As I said, I was getting like, 8 shots or something to the 9 and the 8 handicap. And my caddy was a genius because the one thing I can do is putt. He would tell me where to do it and off we went. Poor Mooney's caddy, nah. He basically,
We've never heard from that again.
Look, we made sure the three of us, the players, that we added a little bit to the kick that they could share with that caddy because he was a golf coach the whole time. And that must have been a really interesting and tough day for him. Again, nothing against the Moon Man. The Mooney was as lovely as they come. He just could not play golf and never had.
Well, that's a good place to end it. I think what we have to do now, Chris, is me and you made the deal that if either of us won that competition, we'd bring each other to Sawgrass to go play. I think I might fly down, stay at your place, unconfirmed yet because you haven't agreed to that. But we can go and heckle Rick when he goes to Sawgrass.
That sounds like a plan.
Tell everyone again where they can get your picks. I know you're going to have round 1 stuff up. Oh, there was one more I want to throw at you. It's just a 72-hole tournament if you want to pick on Keegan. Harris English over Keegan -107.
Absolutely. Yeah. Go with Harris English. I watched him do a walk and talk earlier this week. He's playing with house money. He sounds great. He really wants to be a pick as well. I think he's in the top 6. I think he locked that down. So he's just, happy where he is. I love that this week. Harris English, 100%. And one other thing that I will say. So Sepp Straka, like we talked about earlier, first round top 10. If you wanted to get him at +175, again, take it at your own risk. Cause again, we don't know why he was off last week. But again, over a course of 4 days with no cut, this is a guy that over the course of these 4 days, he will fire a 600. He loves to go low at least one round, guaranteed. So you can take him at top continental. So depending on top regions, it could be nationality, top regions. It depends on your book. There's 3 players in that category. You have Oberg, you have Ludwig Oberg, you have Victor Hovland, and then you have Sepp Straka. Sepp Straka to win that group, to beat those two guys, is +275. That is crazy value for a guy who's arguably had a better season than both those guys. Hovland is hit or miss, and Oberg can't play a Sunday. I don't care what anybody says. He won the Farmers by just being there, and I just don't think that he has it in the bag on Sundays. So really like that play, Sepp Straka, top continental +275.
Sepp Straka also great in the Southeast and someone who dominates the courses where accuracy means everything and distance means little. I would say nothing, but you're better off being in the fairway.
Yeah.
And
then, anybody, if there's ever a time to get free picks, we've had a very good year, 10 outrights. I guess you could count Rosie. I did cash him out, but that would make it 11. First round leaders, we do matchup parlays every day. It's 100% free. Get in. We have a Discord community of people, live betting. It's a lot of fun, and we have your back. Betting can be super lonely, so sometimes having a community that has your back can make all the difference.
Ben, are you doing any writing, podcasting, or are you just going to hop on with me now for the Australian Open?
Dude, I'm going to get on with you anytime you want me, of course. I'm going to have more crazy, outlandish ideas at any stage of the season and in any sport. I have to hand it to you. The fact that Money Mills and you guys are putting out cash on preseason NFL is sensational. To be that, happy to have that big play and then put your free week on the line is amazing to me. But if you ever need National Rugby League tips, and I showed this to Money when we were out there, we cashed every game we played.
We
So
did.
if there's anything there in the NRL, you got to come to me too. That's where I get the cash.
Sure. What were you fighting with that guy outside the bar about rugby?
Oh dear. Well, he was actually he was an American youth soccer scout, and I was fighting with him about the fact that over here it seems that the best athletes do not make it through the soccer system, and that's because it's pay to play, right? Like it costs a lot of money for young soccer players in the US to get on the system and be part of squads, academies, or clubs, or whatever else. And so because of that, the athletes that could be in the system go by the wayside. And to be fair, he agreed. He said that, as a scout, he doesn't even get to see half the best athletes. And a lot of them are just people who have been able to afford being on these teams, and people have willingly taken their money through the junior process. So, we were just working out why America is not a bigger global superpower in soccer. And that smaller countries like Canada and Australia can essentially go up against them on occasions. With way
this
less
all
people.
started. Money, I think you just booked out to your room. You just gave us the Irish goodbye. You're like, yeah, I'll meet you for a drink. Never saw you again.
Yeah,
Casey was there just spouting off about how Connor McDavid, if he played soccer, would be the greatest soccer player on earth. And everyone's just like, what?
Yeah. That was one of the funniest ones. And how every hockey player that Casey knew was going to be the world's best soccer player. Just if he just dropped his skates and went out there, he would be, the next Pele or the next Ronaldo or whatever else. That was one of the more intense arguments I'd ever heard late night over a few beers. And look, I'll tell you one thing I will say this about Money too. He did get to the casino early week with me. When I arrived late, he went to Arkansas with me, sight unseen. We hadn't met. Jumped in my car. We went across the border. And the man was on fire. He's playing his poker games. He's playing the blackjack, whatever else. He cleaned up. And I like to think of myself as a decent card player. I did okay, but he did much better than me. So whatever Money's got his money into, you probably want to be there too.
Thanks for doing this, guys. This is fun.
This is awesome. Let's do it again soon.
Oh, anytime.
Yeah.
Awesome,
All right.
awesome.
So here's what you guys can do. You can smash a like to the episode. You can sub to Mayo Media Network. We got the NFC win total show coming out tomorrow. It's ludicrous. And Cuss loves the Seahawks, and I hate the Seahawks. So guess who's going to end up being right? Probably me on that one. But if you do want to get your lineups in and do your golf research, you can get 25% off at betspertsgolf.com right now if you use code Mayo at betspertsgolf.com. So I recommend you do it. Okay? I'm Pat Mayo. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.
Mayo experience! Experience!